Welcome everyone.
Welcome.
How you guys doing?
Awesome.
So, a little smaller group tonight. Maybe it's the topic, but we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff tonight other than crypto compliance. I thought we'd do something a little different this time, and I'm glad I'm seeing a lot of the same faces. I appreciate you coming back, and hopefully you're learning something, have some new faces here tonight. Invite friends, and if anybody else wants to present, we obviously have that opportunity. For anybody. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about compliance, but near the end of and it won't be a long presentation tonight. Questions and answers throughout. Don't worry. Talk to me about whatever you like. If something piques your interest, let's stop and talk about it. At the end, we're going to sort of open it up to a couple different things and talk about whatever you want to talk about, and then we can have a discussion. So a lot of things going on in this space. So about 3 weeks ago, I went to Consensus in New York. I didn't actually go to Consensus because it's a big conglomerate group of people, but it's kind of cool when you go there, because I was there the year before, and in New York, everybody sort of converges in every different use case, every different company. They're really starting to show what they do and how they're operating in this crypto space. So I usually go off to the side and go to the meetups. It's like The Color of Money or The Hustler, where you make more friends and more contacts in the green room, you place in bets and so forth. That's really, really cool. I made so many contacts there in a 2-hour time frame. I've sort of connected a lot of my clients. So going to various meetups like this and then other places is really important for us to all expand together and learn new things, because I learned a whole bunch of things. I met somebody, we have a lot of clients in the real estate use cases related to crypto and buying and selling real estate, and I met a bank that does crypto in that regard. So pretty cool how they operate and how they're looking for other ideas. Just a simple thing is that we're trying to figure out a way, because title companies are in charge of real estate now, right? You take it to the title company, they act as the escrow agent, they distribute money, they record deeds and so forth. But what if you have crypto? I've talked to 20 title companies. Everyone thinks I'm a little nuts, that they're talking about crypto at this stage. But this lender down in Texas has an opportunity. I said, what about you acting as the intermediary to this whole thing? You act as the crypto side of things. Title company still acts on the USD side, and he says, wow, what a great idea. I go, oh, well, thanks. And next thing I know is we're having conversations, we're connecting clients and so forth. So it's moving that fast. Ideas that you think are unusual or impossible, either someone's starting to work on it or there's an opportunity to expand. Anyway, it has nothing to do with compliance, but thought it was very interesting as it relates to crypto. But anyway, go to those things. I'm going to be speaking at Morningstar. I'll be on a panel on June 28th in the city. A little bit less expensive, so if you're interested, just let me know. I think it's still expensive, but it's not, $800, $900, $1,000 expensive. It's $200. So, as you get closer to the event, depending, if you're really interested, sometimes because I'm speaking, I can get a little bit of a discount for some of the people near the end. So just let me know. And those are pretty cool. We're going to talk about ICOs and compliance on that day, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. Morningstar is coming out with a model related to, actually Morningstar is getting involved in the space. So the bigger companies, rating companies and larger companies are getting more involved. So that's just a precursor to what we're going to talk about next. So why crypto compliance? Why am I talking about that? Sounds awfully legal. It is, but it's not. So as we go through this, think about all this in light of what a consumer is thinking, okay? All of us, when we're even at the hobby level, even if we're not at the institutional level or the retail level, or getting involved in use cases or buying and selling crypto, it's everyday transactions that we're conducting with Bitcoin or Dash or any other currency, or any contract or relationship that we have with crypto. Think of being compliant, not compliant with the rules of what the SEC says or what the state law says, but being compliant and understanding who you're dealing with. So on a daily basis now, it's not me talking to someone up the street, it's me talking to someone internationally, it's me talking to somebody nationally. I don't know who this person is. So I found the other day, I finally found a great accountant in Austin, Texas, and what's very interesting now is that I have like 7 or 8 connections to Austin, Texas, so I'm booking a flight down to fly down there just because it seems to be a little bit of a hub. At least I don't know how I got connected, but they're all different sources, but we're all coming together in Austin to talk about this. And it's interesting is that accountant. Now, how do I know that this accountant is someone that I can trust and legitimate is the word? And I don't know. So do I have to ask this accountant to fill out, know your customer? Does he need to send me his do I have to do a background check on him? Because now I'm connecting my clients with them. So it's becoming anybody you talk to, you have to sort of check up on them. So we're sort of volunteering our information to them so they know that we're legitimate, in the space. So very interesting phenomena, something that I would never have thought about before. A lot of this is going on already in Europe for opening up bank accounts, or when I have my clients in international space and you talk to an accountant there, they go through a lot of due diligence and so forth. We're not doing that in the United States, but I think we have to. Anyway, that's a little bit about what's going on as a backdrop to this. So what really requires compliance in today's day and age? Obviously the biggest is banking. So banking is an interesting phenomena as it is because it's really hard to find a bank in the crypto space. Why? Well, they're really big on anti-money laundering. They're really big on know your customer. They're big on getting all the financials and stuff so that before they lend money to somebody or get into a bank relationship, they have to do it. They do OFAC checks for overseas. So they're the biggest already compliance hawk that we know of. Now, interestingly, as I compare the two between compliance with crypto clients and compliance with other clients that are non-crypto based, it's the same scenario. Same compliance requirements are necessary. So we're trying to follow in every mechanism that relates to crypto using banking as a model of how to vet somebody out. All right. So what's anything fiduciary and requires an agreement? So interesting thing came up the other day where if I'm contracting with somebody else related to crypto, or I'm one of the lawsuits that's been filed by us is a situation where one party invested in crypto A, or one party wanted the other party didn't invest in crypto A, they invested in crypto B. Okay, crypto A went way up, crypto B didn't go way up. There's no agreement, there's no contract, so what happens? There was no expectation, and as a result, a lawsuit was filed because this person lost $300,000 if that person would have invested in crypto B. So even if you're doing little transactions, or if you're doing it for Cousin Eddie, as I put up here, still have a contract. So the other day, one of our clients wanted to invest in, go into somebody else's wallet to trade, okay, in a Bittrex wallet. What do? There has to be an agreement because there's a potential for a breach. So we're compliant even at that very localized level. You have to think about compliance. So that's another thing. What's really kicking, I already talked about know your customer, anti-money laundering, reporting, and FinCEN. The problem that we're having is the battle between federal and state regulation. So federal says, it's pretty clear what we need to do to be compliant in that arena, but as it relates to states, state to state vary. So when we're dealing with clients all over the United States, or you're dealing with anybody in the United States, what is true here may not be true elsewhere. So in Illinois, you can have a kiosk where I can put money in and get crypto. In New York, I have to have a license. So, what do? Do you have to go get the license? Of course you do. So how do you distinguish? You have to know from state to state. So it's becoming far, far more complex. So everything now, as we deal, when you guys are buying and trading coin, if you're doing that, you got to remember is that, am I trading a security? So as we talk about that, is this like a stock? Some people say yes and some people no, it's not defined. So what's good today may not be good tomorrow. So anyway, the biggest things I want to talk about today related to compliance is ICOs. So an initial coin offering. Does anybody not know what an initial coin offering is? If you don't, please say you don't, because I want to make sure you understand. All right, well that's great actually. We've got a pretty educated crowd today. So initial coin offering is an opportunity to invest in a company through the sale of coin. So What someone asked last time, which was thought was very intriguing, is how do we figure out how to protect ourselves and determine if this particular coin offering for this particular use case is valid. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but the problem is there's a good majority of these things that are frauds. So I think it's close to 70% that they're sort of estimating are just nonsensical, that they don't make sense, there's nothing behind them, and they're just raising money, and they have all this money, and what do they do with it? We don't know. I was talking to Heather the other day, who's hawking all these cease and desist letters, and it was EOS, right? She read.
Well, it's not. I read their white paper. So EOS went live. For those who don't know, EOS finally went live a couple of days ago, and I finally was able to get a hold of their white paper. And their white paper specifically says when you invested, you're investing in tokens, but the tokens don't do anything, and you don't get anything for your investment, and you don't have any interest in the company, and basically you're giving us money, but we're giving you absolutely nothing in return. And it flat out says it right there in the white paper. You're not getting anything.
So how many?
And yet they raised $4 billion.
But I'm a big fan of US.
Huh?
What?
I'm a big fan of US.
EOS, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Do
for
you
the
own it?
Yeah, not little bit.
Are you able to register it? Because it's
No,
not supposed to
Mainnet is
be.
going to launch now, I think couple of days. So they are doing some voting process and all.
Yeah, because U.S. citizens aren't allowed to hold it. It is excluded from U.S. citizens because it is not registered.
Binance or something. So
By non-U.S. citizens, you can hold it. But U.S. citizens were not supposed to be allowed to buy it and aren't supposed to be allowed to hold it. And yet, it's currently trading on Kraken. So I'm not quite sure how that's happening. However, Kraken just got a letter from the New York Securities Board demanding information. I'm guessing that might be part of it.
So that's exactly right. So if I read that white paper and I said, well, what Heather said, I don't know what it does, I don't know who's getting paid, but then people are still investing in it. And that's what we're sort of talking about here in this group. A lot of people come to talk about, investment side of things is, if no one reads it, so when you have your phone and it comes up and there's all these words, do you agree or disagree with the rules and regulations that are
I
in
agree.
this? And everyone just agrees, they don't read it. That's what everyone's relying on now. But, I urge you, if you're gonna invest, and again, I'm not an investment advisor, but if you're gonna invest in this stuff, you gotta read what it's about. Granted, there is plays for these pump and dumps. You think it's gonna go up and down, or you're gonna invest it, short it, whatever you wanna do with it, just be conscious of the fact if you're gonna hold anything long, that this company may not have anything to do with anything. So real important, and that's why when we talk about compliance, it's just, as we're gonna see, it's just yourself, and we're gonna talk about things you can do yourself. So anyway, I talked about 70% of fraudulent ICOs. Let's see. So this is pretty interesting. Cryptocurrency is currently in an island where the user base is drastically growing, and the biggest gap we have to address is compliance and education of pursuing the tokens on the market. So we're watching this stuff. We're watching the ICOs. We're watching the token sales, but are we really paying attention? We have to be properly educated. We're going to talk about how you can be properly educated during this process without hiring a professional. So, who are these trusted sources? Is it?
Next one.
One left. Right
This one.
there.
There.
So how are we going to change that?
I got it.
All right.
And you said the space was there.
Yep, I got it.
So these are sources with all the nonsense with fake news and, is this news, is this fake news? I mean, every time I turn on the TV, something is being described as fake news. But that's where we get our information. We get it, CNN, CNBC, wherever else, and wherever else you're getting it on TV. Are they credible? A lot of the people that I hear talk on regular mainstream TV, they don't know anything about crypto. It's very interesting. They're talking about it, but they don't know, and that's interesting too. But then, do we rely on Wikipedia as to what's good? Do we rely on Discord? Do we rely on Telegram? Do we rely on the influencers? So an influencer, for those people who don't know, are people that talk and have a very big following, but they talk about what? Things that they want to go up in value. So do we trust them? But they're an influencer. They know everything about it. No. Maybe they do, but maybe they're trying to influence you to buy a token that may be worth nothing. So who do you trust? I guess you have to trust yourself. You have to trust somebody that's in the space that you know wouldn't lead you wrong. And you have to really do a lot more work than just say, oh, cool, this one, someone told me this is going up, $30. Yep.
So every ICO should have a white paper, but Heather said it was really hard to get a hold of.
Some of them are hard to get a
that
hold
one,
of.
So that should be a clue right there.
Major red
right?
flag.
If you can't get a hold of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have it like.
Well, and the date on the EOS ICO, or the EOS white paper was May 28th. They've been doing their ICO for a year, which means they were doing their ICO for months before they had a white paper out. And that's a big sign too. You will see some that launch an ICO and then you go to the white paper and they say in the works or coming soon or what. Okay, really? You want me to invest in something and you're not gonna tell me what I'm investing in, what you're gonna do with the money I'm investing? You're gonna tell me nothing about your company? Who are the founders of your company? Who are the developers in your company? What are you developing? What is it gonna do? So, yeah.
That's a perfect example. So when you go to, let's say, a doctor or an auto mechanic or a realtor, anything, what do? You research them thoroughly. I would assume you talk to somebody first to say, hey, do you know this person? Or you look and see what kind of reviews they have. But people aren't doing that in the space, and it's very, very odd that they're not. Which is okay because we've been trained that this is the real thing. So it was okay, and everybody and no one cared when the prices were going up, but now they're all going down and people are freaking out. And what happens is, and we're going to talk about institutional retail versus consumer, let's not be the normal consumer here. Let's be the one that's educated, and just because it's drops does not mean it's bad. Okay? It means we're in a market sway, and it could be that it can continue to go down and stay down, or equally as it could go up, but for sure you're going to lose money if you sell after you bought high. So be an educated consumer about this and use some of these techniques when you're doing that.
Wouldn't it be good to see if they had a board?
Oh, absolutely. And check out the advisory boards. Yeah, check out the advisory boards because the number of, and I'm trying to find software that will actually tell me, like, so I've got a kid in high school, and whenever they turn in a paper, they have to turn it into a site called turnitin.org or something like that checks for plagiarism. The number of white papers that I've read that I'm like, I read that exact paragraph in another white paper. They are plagiarizing from each other like crazy. They are using the pictures of advisors from other, there's, as you said, 70% conservatively are fraudulent. So yeah, look into the people, look into the developers, look into the project. There are some great projects out there, absolutely, but you gotta do your due diligence.
Yeah, it's they're not being compliant, so you have to watch whether they're compliant or not. That's why we're talking about this in light of compliance. And what's happening too is marketing is driving the white paper. So it's almost like a battle. We get a white paper in, we say, oh, we got to do this. Oh, okay, great, that's good. That's going to protect us legally. Then we get the revision back. The marketing people got their hands on it, and it's right back to where it was before, not compliant. So I'm assuming that's what's happening all over the world.
So what exactly makes a coin compliant?
So a coin that's compliant is one that follows the rules and regulations in the jurisdiction, number one. Number two, it informs the investor. The key to all this, the key of the SEC attacking, whether it's crypto or whether it's Apple stock, is whether I tell you that you can lose your money, there's a good risk that you're losing your money. I'm not saying that this coin is going to go up by 10% or that a developer is, a sophisticated developer in the crypto space and he started working 2 weeks ago. It's the key to the whole point is that we're giving actual factual information, without puffing too much, that you understand what this product is doing and what could possibly happen to your investment. Okay? The loss of my principal, that's the key to the whole thing. Legal disclosures as to what could happen if there's a loss, or a disclosure to the effect of that crypto is a new industry, that anything could happen that's unregulated at this point in time, pay attention. Those are types of things that make a token compliant. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there was some regulatory agency that puts a stamp on certain coins saying you're compliant.
So, go ahead.
There are a couple that are trying to go for what's called Reg A certification. It's an exemption from the SEC. So they are flat out from the beginning saying, we realize you're most likely going to deem us a security. Therefore, in order to be legally traded, we need to follow these rules. And so there are several that are in the process of getting that. If they get Reg A certification, then those are going to be absolutely tradable, absolutely legal. And then there are certain exchanges that are also going through that same process and trying to get officially approved. Because right now, exchanges, none of the exchanges are approved by the SEC. Nobody has applied for what's called an ATS, Alternative Trading System, is the license that they should have. To be an alternative trading system, you have to follow the rules that say, we're not going to manipulate trades. We're not going to give some trades preferential treatment over others. Just like NASDAQ has their rules and New York Stock Exchange has their rules, all the exchanges have a set of rules. The current cryptocurrency exchanges, they call themselves exchanges, but they are an unregulated mess. They can do whatever they want. They can shut down. They can say, we're going to trade your money, but we're not going to trade your money. They can say, we're going to trade Bitcoin, but we're not going to trade, we're going to shut down our Ethereum for a while. They can do whatever they want. You have no knowledge of who controls them. You have no knowledge of why they are doing this and not doing that. Are they controlling market swings? Are they controlling how things, they can do whatever they want. So if they get the licensing as an alternative trading system, then they set up a set of rules and they have to follow those rules. So you would have some transparency in terms of who owns this exchange, how is this exchange run, how are trades enacted, what's the speed of the trades, all that kind of stuff.
So that's exactly right, though. These are we're currently unregulated. There's no rules associated with trading coin in the United States. Just like there was no rules for Airbnb, we'll talk about that later. There was no rules for Uber, but now, we'll talk about it now. So why did Airbnb and Uber prosper? Because they did something within an unregulated world, made a lot of money, put the money in a war chest so that they could fight City Hall, so to speak. So the exchanges, I think, are floating on that same concept, that they made maybe billions of dollars. They have the war chest, they're ready to fight. So they're either ready to play or fight. So they fought the IRS for a little while, Coinbase did, as to whether they should respond to the subpoenas that were sent to them to release information on who their customers were, because no one was paying income tax on crypto sales. So that happened. So Coinbase said, we're not going to deal with this. But now Coinbase, which is interesting phenomenon, which I like to talk about, that is that they were a major exchange out of San Francisco, but now they've gone from the consumer side to, I say, the sort of the evil side of the institutions and retail, and now they're coming to open up a place in Chicago to work with some of the trading platforms within Chicago, because Chicago with the futures market and so forth, all the things that are coming through, they're really sort of connected in that way. So now they're connected to the powers that run the country. Okay, so is the government going to push around Coinbase now? Probably not. They're not pushing around Uber. New York came out, hey, no more taxis. We want our taxis. We don't want Uber. It didn't work out for the taxi drivers. If you saw the medallion prices drop from millions of dollars to tens of thousands of dollars in value. So that's sort of where we're at in the world of crypto. Great question, but no regulation. Regulation's coming.
Isn't Gemini licensed?
Gemini, so several of the states, so several of the states have various licensing processes. So like New York has them, and because they just got a new coin. So not only is the exchange licensed in New York, but they have to get each coin approved. Because like I think it was Bitcoin Zcash. Zcash just got approved, and so its price went up significantly because now it can be traded on Gemini. So New York has probably the most licensing set up already. I suspect several of the other states are gonna follow that, would be my guess, at least the northern states. Southern states are kind of going a different direction, but that's the state that has the most, I think they were already so in the financial market, they were really set up to be able to drop the regulations in more quickly and efficiently than other states.
So yeah, that's the difference. Some states you can be compliant in one state, not in another, federal, so forth. So we'll see what happens. We don't know exactly, we can only predict. We'll talk about predictions shortly, but we have to sort of stay. Do we remain, if I'm a company now, some of this is talking about us as consumers, but if we're a company in the space, operating in the space, we have to decide, are we gonna go without, pretending like regulation will never happen, which people are doing, or do we try to remain compliant so that we have a longer, future in the space? So that's sort of the battleground that we're in right now. Yeah.
So if you are trading and you trade with Gemini, the Bitcoin you have, does it go to another exchange? Can you enter on one exchange and exit on another exchange?
So there is no uniformity amongst exchanges as far as we know, but right now, yeah, you'd have to actually transfer it via your wallet from one exchange to another. It's not like this is not centralized.
So it's fungible, it'd be fungible at the exchange you purchased.
That's exactly correct. Yep.
And various exchanges, like there are some exchanges that are licensed in some states and not licensed in other states. So some exchanges you'll go on, and if you're in Missouri, they're like, yeah, no, can't come here. You're a Missouri resident. But if you're an Illinois resident, yep, no problem. So there are several exchanges like that. I think, in fact, Gemini, is still not licensed in Hawaii and like New Mexico. So there's certain things like that where certain states you're good to go, and if you're a resident in other states, you're out of luck.
So that's the thing too, is as a consumer, if I live in New Mexico and I lie about my identity somehow, or use somebody else's address, or use a fake picture, is that the exchange's fault, or is that your fault? Is there an enforcement mechanism to come after you? Probably not. Not that I'm saying anybody should do that, but what I'm saying is that right now it's set up that these people are, maybe an exchange wants to be 100% compliant, but that doesn't mean that they will be compliant, because people cheat all the time to try to get on an exchange or invest in let's say there's a coin overseas that I want to invest in, but it says no Americans can invest in it. Are people investing in those exchanges from America? Of course they are. So it's kind of a weird world, we're living in now, because where's the level of enforcement? We know in the United States that the SEC has got a task force going to enforce, but who are they enforcing against? Only this year did they start issuing cease and desist letters to enforce non-compliant things and investigate. So we don't know where it's going to come down. Your guess is as good as ours. Any other questions? So that's it. So this is what the most important part of today is, what can you do on your own? Watch on a daily basis of what's going on in the regulatory world, and ask questions and get into some of these chat rooms and figure out what they're doing. Talk to some of these trading companies, because they're sort of watching it as well. A lot of people are watching it, but if you focus your search on Google or whatever other search engine you use to these type of things to figure out what's going on, so you can protect yourself, and that's the sole goal. Use your common sense. That's, if you remember nothing from today, that's the most important thing. If it doesn't, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
So the know your customer and the anti-money laundering, they're saying that they have to follow. Well, who puts that on? Is the coin complies to that, or the exchange complies to that?
Yeah, so if I go on an exchange, like we like to do it, let's say it was Bittrex, you have to hold up your driver's license, then you have to hold up, the date, and then you have to put something else, you have to take a picture of yourself, and then you send that to them. But this is not high-tech stuff. You send this, there's just some guy looking through these emails that you're sending.
So it's self-regulation.
It's self-regulation.
Self-regulation, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was the funniest part. So we've got an exchange client, or did have an exchange client, And they're trying to make that more systematized. Then you use artificial intelligence to check and re-verify, but they're not there yet. You know, it's a lot of this money that was made is right place, right time sort of thing. Smart people, but you know, before the regulation came in, so it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. Is that it's not sophisticated things that are happening. So that's that know your customer. Yeah, is it working? Probably. That's why when everything went up in value in last right before the crash in December, it was they couldn't keep up because it was computerized, but it was computerized with individual people diagnosing it. So use your common sense. Anything that seems too good to be true probably is. I mean, that's an adage that we've been using forever. It holds true. Remember that too, is a lot of the things that everyone goes, oh, crypto is so strange, it's this weird thing that I can't apply life principles to. Absolutely not. Everything that we do, you know, at my firm or anybody I talk to, it's all things, you know, most of these companies are just startup companies. That's nothing new. You know, startup companies are going gangbusters now too because the economy is good, but the same things apply to the crypto. So use your mind. You know, research, we talked about that. You know, look for mechanisms. Call me anytime if you have a question. You know, that's not a problem. It's not a legal question. Is, hey, you know, what do you think of this? And we can chat about it. I'm always happy to do that. And it doesn't have to be about the regulations. It's about how to protect yourself. And then when you really become serious about spending money, you know, talk to people you trust. So this is a pretty interesting thing that we've discovered lately. So everybody in the last 6 months has said, you know, forget the United States, we're going overseas. And we say, all right, let's check it out. So we've looked. We've got the islands, you know, all the islands, all the foreign countries, you know, Russia, China, South Korea, Japan. You know, we start talking about all these things. Then the islands, you know, oh, they're good. It's tax free and so forth. So we start trying to figure out, well, how do we become compliant with an ICO overseas? Because I don't know all the rules and regulations for every single country in the world. I mean, it's impossible. You start doing it, you start getting crazy. So we got to the point where we're looking at one of the islands that was, you know, connected with the EU. So there was a decision to make, whether you open an exchange in Malta or Gibraltar. Okay, one was connected to the EU, one was connected to the UK. So did those countries eventually follow the rules and regulations of the country that they're part of, or can they operate by themselves? And then all of a sudden, during the opening of an exchange, and we're operating within an exchange, the process of an exchange, they add regulation. And then someone adds significant, then we talked about Cayman Islands for a while, then they all of a sudden have this huge AML, KYC policy, and now to open an exchange, it used to be you could open it, you know, overnight, so to speak. Now you're opening it, you know, 6 months from now. Or do you go to a completely unregulated country to open your exchange or do your ICO? I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to describe. Then you make your best guess, and that's the funny thing about this is we're all just making our best, most educated guess.
Phil, isn't there, like, on their website some, let's say, drop down for regulation, or that you can?
Well, sure.
No, huh?
In some countries.
Well, yeah, I mean, in some, but the problem is, so first of all, the coins don't necessarily want to follow the regulations, or don't necessarily, many of them want to go where there's little or no regulation at all, because the regulatory process in most of these places is going to add time, and everybody wants to get their coin out there as fast as they can. So, you know, so you've got Gibraltar, for example, has a very set process. They've set forth a really nice regulatory program for exchanges. And they've said, this is to be an exchange, this is what you need to do, and these are the steps you're going to go through. Well, it's a 6-month process. None of the exchanges want to wait 6 months, new up-and-coming exchanges. They want to get out there now because they want to get their hands on the hot money that's flying around now, because everybody's excited now. They don't know what's going to be going on in the industry in 6 months. So then they say, well, we don't really want to deal with Gibraltar because we don't want to wait, so we're going to go to Malta because that's where Binance just went. So we're going to follow Binance and we're going to go to Malta. Well, Malta doesn't have regulations yet, but they have regulations coming. So then the question is, okay, well, you go there and you form, and 3 months from now, Malta comes down with these killer regulations, because Malta is related to the EU, and Germany wants to put greater regulations on things, and chances are good the EU is gonna go where Germany goes, because Germany runs the EU for all intents and purposes. So then, did you just jump to Malta, and now suddenly you're gonna get pounded with killer regulations? So they're guessing. Everybody's kind of guessing, and the exchanges who really want to do it correctly are going through the process. But a lot of them are already up and running and going through the process after the fact. It's the new exchanges or the new coins that just want to get out there. And so a lot of those are looking for any jurisdiction that has as few regulations as possible so they can get up and running. And as Phil said, a lot of them are just trying to build up their war chest. Okay, we'll get out there in an unregulated environment, we'll build up our war chest, and then we'll ask forgiveness rather than permission. There's a lot of let's go ask forgiveness instead of permission. Which if you're really doing everything right, you can probably get away with. But if you're a terrible, fraudulent thing, that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, and that was the funny thing with you, Joseph, is that Binance, everyone's going, oh, Malta, they're going to Malta, so hey, everyone's running to Malta, but everyone forgets that Binance made the poor decision to open
In Singapore.
where they got chased out, so they went to Malta. So they didn't make the right choice either, and it's the biggest exchange in the world. So they make mistakes too. So it's kind of that philosophy. And then you find out Binance invested 15 million or whatever in Bermuda. So why is all this happening? So Joseph.
I was gonna ask, all these exchanges are on servers, so can't you just have multiple servers in different parts of the world and just say, oh, you know what, today we're in Russia, but now we're gonna be in Malta, and then now we're gonna be in South Africa, and then today we're gonna be in Bermuda. Because it's just servers, really. So it's just like wherever the information is, that's where the exchange is. So can't they just do that, per se, to kind of get around?
I guess
If they really wanted to, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I guess it's a good point. However, if you're going to be somewhere that's regulated, if everything's unregulated, I guess that the answer is yeah, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to be regulated at some point, you have to have a location or principal site is somewhere. So if you're jumping around, then people start getting, well, where are they? It took me a while initially to figure out where Coinbase was. You look through, and I was trying to research it, and I couldn't find it. It took me an hour to figure out where Changelly was. And then it was like, okay, that's cool. At least I know where they're at. But yeah, I mean that's definitely a possibility.
Well, and the company that owns the exchange can't bounce around. I mean, just because the exchange can bounce around, wherever the company is formed, if you're formed in the Cayman Islands, converting your company from a Cayman Islands company to a Gibraltar company, or converting from a Cayman Islands company to a Malta company, that's a process. Wherever you form your actual company, they're going to have some say in your regulations, because that's where the money is going to come in eventually,
That's right.
is to your company.
Let's go to the next one. That's correct. Any other questions before we go on? So, I guess the answer to this question is pretty self-evident, or maybe it's not. Is it worth trying to be fully compliant in this world of crypto? Again, we talked about Airbnb, we talked about all these companies that made a lot of money. Sometimes you're not going to have a choice to be fully compliant. All right, it could be that yes, I'm going to be compliant, or no, I'm not going to be compliant. Sometimes there's a gray area that I'm not going to be compliant under any scenario. Which do I choose? Which is the lesser of two evils? I'm using a lot of cliches today, which is unusual for me. But what is the lesser of two evils? What we've noticed is we're giving advice now. It's different than when we gave advice, before we got involved in crypto. We're not saying absolutely yes, sir, you can do it, or absolutely no, you cannot do it. And clients don't want to hear absolutely no, you don't want it, you can't do it. It's you can do it, but these are the consequences for selecting one or the other. So that's the world we're living, because it's constantly changing. It's very exciting, because no one knows. Everything is gray, nothing's black and white.
Phil, isn't it more like take the money and run?
Well, absolutely. That's what a lot of people. That's what we're talking about. That's the 70% fraud. You're investing in a company. They take the money. We don't know what they're doing with it, and they head back to some foreign country. And I'm being very careful of which countries I choose, and we're on video, and we've got a lot of clients all over, so, yeah, they're off to wherever they go, and absolutely. Because it's all virtual too, right? We've got coin goes, we can be tracked, but how much can you track? You know, if I invested $500 into a company, or 500 USD, or a quarter of a crypto, Bitcoin, am I gonna chase? Am I gonna chase for that money around the world just to get that back? But, you know, there's 3,000 people like me. I mean, are they gonna get a class action, or, I mean, who do you even call? Is there an attorney, or is there, you call the SEC, they're like, oh, yeah, that's fine, get on the list of 3,000 people that called me last week. You know, that's sort of where we're at in this world. Is that clear? Okay. All right. So here's the biggest thing of all. So when I start analyzing companies, so people come in all the time and say, hey, I want to do this crypto-based company. And I look at the model, I go, why? Why not just do a normal, everyday raise of money, do a regular startup, you know, get regular investors, you'll have a bigger group of people. But I want to do crypto. I want to sell tokens, and I want to make lots more money. And I said, all right, but why don't we do one first, get you a product, because you need a product to sell. Because normally, I mean, if you know how the process works with startups, you know, you get seed friends and family, seed investors, you know, you get angel investors, and then you start accumulating money so you can design a project or a product that can be usable for a cool thing. And then you get big money coming in. Why not do the project first using tried and true mechanisms and then talk about token sales? But I want to do a token sale is always the answer. So then you set it up for a token sale, but there's other things. And if you look at the use case, and that's what I always think when I start analyzing different coin or different projects, I said, does this make sense without crypto? And I go, if it makes sense without crypto, and we add crypto, which is a tremendous marketing tool. I mean, I think crypto is marketing based a lot of the times, like that Kodak thing. You know, what was the other one with the iced tea? You know, you're adding crypto just to market to be cool, and that really doesn't matter to me in my mind if the product is good and we add crypto on top of it. So just another thing to think about. If you look at it and says, this product doesn't make sense, then you probably shouldn't be investing in it anyway. And then if you have compliance with a token raise, let's say it's a good product, a good token raise, it's related to the blockchain, and you do it in a compliant way, you might have some longevity. Okay, it's not going to be the situation where someone gets rich and runs away with money, or maybe you hit it big and invested in something when it was really low and it went high. Maybe that's not going to happen, but the long-term project that's compliant probably is going to be the best one for you. So this is sort of what I talked about before, and what we talked just about with you is, everyone else is doing it, everyone else is making a lot of money, I want to do that, I can do that. Phil, they weren't compliant, but let's make some money on it because it's gonna go up and people don't know. That's sort of the bad idea to get involved in. Then you got to decide, someone's gonna get caught along the way. Is it gonna be you? Is it gonna be somebody else? Is it gonna be a friend of yours? Is someone gonna be in jail? I don't know. We don't know all those things as they go through. I mean, we had the downturn in the economic market, right, back in 2008. I don't know how many people went to jail. That was bad stuff that people were doing. Did a lot of people go to jail? I don't think so.
No one went to jail.
Yeah, probably not a lot. A very small percent. Maybe no one. Maybe you're right. So, is it okay? Should you be compliant? I say yes. Because I would like to do things the right way. But a lot of people are saying no. And you just don't want to be the guy that gets thrown in jail. So that's an important thing too. I talked about that already. So if you've been watching, there's been a steady stream of cease and desist letters coming in, and Heather talked about this a couple seminars ago, or a couple meetups ago, is that the cease and desist letters coming out telling companies to stop doing what they're doing because they're being fraudulent to investors, like we were just talking about 15 minutes ago. So that's what's happening, and they don't stop, they keep on coming. So it's at the top of attention. So all the things that happened in 2015 and 16 where we didn't have that feeling of a problem, in 2017 and 18, we're definitely being more conscious of it. And that maybe, and we're going to talk about that, maybe part of the reason for the drop in the market price of a lot of these coins. Because nothing got different. These coins are still the coins they were before, but now people are a little scared. And everything is being treated like fraud, and everything's being treated like that by the SEC and governmental regulations in the states. They're looking at it first as if it's like, you're innocent to be proven guilty. It's like guilty, before you're proven innocent. So, another cliche that stinks. Let's go to the next one. So, when am I done with compliance? So it goes on and on and on. So once you're compliant, that doesn't mean you're going to be compliant tomorrow. Or if you follow what I said today, that doesn't mean that I'm going to change my mind as to how to do this tomorrow. So that's why you constantly have to be educated. And sorry if you're a chiropractor. So what I found interesting is that the best things that we did, at least Heather and I and our firm in terms of thinking about these things, is speculating. And it's weird, you speculate on stocks, bonds, whatever you speculate, real estate market, but we're constantly speculating about what's going to happen next. And if you speculate that way, you sort of can predict things that are going to happen, because it's not this huge market of US dollars or FX or anything that's large and it's hard to move. This market moves because of small things. So if you speculated back in January of 2017 that coins would be considered a security, like Apple stock or Alibaba or whatever it is, if you speculated that, would that make your decision a little bit clearer as to whether or not you should invest in it now? I think when I determined that they were going to be considered securities, when I first started getting that feeling in my stomach, I thought the whole dynamic was going to change in the market, and it did. Not that I'm a soothsayer or anything, but just it clicked in my head that something is different now, and you get those little feelings, especially if you're in the space. And then in July, did you think that because it was going to be a security, did you start thinking that perhaps this is going to follow the model of normal startup companies? And it was like, yeah, we told a client back in July of 2017, said, hey, listen, we don't like the fact that you're going to do this ICO because we feel that you're not compliant. We feel that you're harming investors. And we said, this sounds a lot like a private placement memorandum. So, and then all of a sudden, all the things that are operating is operating like startup company money raises. So you predict ahead. Now, in September of 2017, were you thinking that compliance was, you probably weren't even thinking about compliance, but are we going to completely, and that's exactly right, were we ignoring compliance? Absolutely. But then all of a sudden, that's all we can think about. So in a matter of months, things changed. So what's coming now in the next end of the year? So my prediction is there's going to be a whole lot of litigation. A lot of people are already losing money. All the people that invested high, if they sold, if you didn't sell, it's okay. It's still hanging around. There's going to be litigation on the exchanges. There's going to be litigation related to ICOs, fraud, people doing things with each other. Anytime people lose money, that's when they get angry and start suing people. So we're gearing up that there's going to be a lot of litigation moving forward, which is not good. It cleans the air, but it's not going to be a fun time. It's just like, everyone getting sued during the foreclosure crisis. Yes, sir.
Just curious, could this actually also eventually go into like regular currencies like the US dollar or the European franc, where people kind of think that these governments are actually taking advantage of us and kind of trying to litigate and sue the government and kind of having some sort of SEC, international SEC regulations to control the world of currencies?
That would be I wish I had a client like that who could afford that lawsuit. But I don't think anybody's going to sue anybody about dollars. That's the national system. The best thing that can happen, I guess, is this decentralized currency thing picks up, and that'll be harm enough. So I hope. We'll see. More regulation, 100%. Will be over-regulated? Absolutely. They're going to go crazy. There's going to be regulation for everything, and it's going to be annoying because it's going to interfere with the progression of things. But that's what the United States is. It's about the centralized entities, governments and banks controlling the situation, and that's what's really happening now. So, very interesting point that just happened about maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago now. I got a couple of clients that called and they said, "Hey, guess what? I've got an order for 1,000 Bitcoin. I need a buyer for 1,000 Bitcoin." I go, what are you even talking about? Then a couple of days later, someone called me and said, "Oh yeah, 10,000 Bitcoin." So I go, wait a minute, and then it happened 3 more times because we sort of got our pulse in this area. And what's happening, I finally figured it out. I'm dense because I was talking to somebody. It's the institutional and retail investors are now in the game. The Goldman Sachs's, the pension funds, they're using this as an alternative investment. I don't know where, but no one's buying 10,000 coins. Either the founders that have 10,000 Bitcoin or some huge pension fund or retail fund. And that's my opinion, and I'm not going to as to why some of this market has dropped, because they're moving they're moving the market now. They're market makers. So interesting, if you've heard this before from me, is that this is the first time that I ever saw the consumer level, the hobby level, people like us that invested in coin early before the institutional and retail got involved. It's backwards. Usually they are the market makers and then the consumers follow. So now the consumers are in, now the institutional has jumped in and retail has jumped in to make money. Okay, it started with the futures, now it's becoming a big deal. So what I'm saying now is don't let that affect you because they're hoping people sell.
Yeah, they do that with with big stocks. They just scare mom and pop out of them, and they acquire, and it goes back up.
That's right. Why do you think it's dropped? That's one of the reasons. Regulation's the reason, the scare tactic. Now all of a sudden what these two gentlemen said. So that's the point is that be the educated consumer. Don't be the scaredy cat consumer, okay? Because they're bullies, right, so to speak. But that's okay, stay in your stock. The stocks plummeted in 2008, they came back, right? Again, I'm not an investment advisor, but that's what they count on. And I think all the trading guys that have come here and I've talked to say the same thing, but they're here. They weren't here before, they're here now. So interesting dynamic of what I'm talking about. So normal fluctuations may not be a result of anything that's happening with the actual coin and tokens and product that's out there.
I was also thinking that, actually, in the sense that these these big corporations probably don't really understand what's happening with the Bitcoin currency or anything like that. They're just kind of seeing it as going up in value, not understanding that there's kind of a reason that there's maybe some idea of security or something that is actually a valid reason why these cryptocurrencies are actually rising.
That's a great point, and I think that the whole thing here is yes, they're for the mighty dollar, and I think that's correct. Good comment. All right, let's go to the next one. So this was interesting. Heather and I were just chatting about this today. Has all this compliance and the drop in crypto prices it affected the space? I would argue no, I haven't seen that happen. And it's actually, we are seeing more, maybe because we're so involved, but we've seen more use cases coming, cool things. And basically on the blockchain side of things is people using the blockchain for various use cases. It's actively coming. And people are coming up with really good ideas. And I like the pace of it. And the coin and people investing and people being educated, the fact that everybody here knew what an ICO was is shocking. I present all the time, that's shocking. And I'm so very glad that that's happening. Maybe it's now starting to take a turn, so I don't see that, yes.
I was actually...
Make a good point, because you're 2 in a row are good.
Okay, so this might be something that I noticed on the slide you were talking about blockchain projects. Is there any sort of blockchain project that actually deals with contractors and kind of people I noticed you said real estate, but if you wanted to deal with contractors by kind of creating some smart contracts where the contractor gets paid once the job is complete, and you know, putting that as a type of mechanism so that they complete the job and complete it well. Is there anything in such a blockchain project where contractors can actually see what other people are dealing, how they're doing this, and what are good projects for them and what are not?
Yeah, so interestingly, one of our first presentations was from Dave Conroy, who sadly left the National Association of Realtors in Chicago. He's one of the first people I made connection with, and he created a platform called Meridio, and just tried to reach out to see. He moved to Brooklyn, so I'll go see him anyway. But the point is that he talked about that as it relates to real estate. So they're talking about the sale and tokenization of real estate, you know, through the blockchain, and that is an enormous use case. Just like for general contractors, it would be perfect, because if you've ever dealt with a general contractor situation with a title company, utter disaster. I mean, the record keeping is the worst thing I've ever seen. And it would be a wonderful use case. We haven't seen someone come into our office yet, but actually, that was one of the first use cases that we talked about in 2016.
But is there any sort of project that's actually there that actually can kind of create some sort of trust or some sort of things for contractors who are doing, like, you know, fixes or something else?
I haven't seen it. Has anybody seen that use case yet? Yeah, I mean, I bet you do a Google search, you'll find one, but it'll come. It'll be here. That's a very, very good use of the blockchain, in my opinion.
Now, for real estate contracts, would Ethereum actually be useful for this, or not really?
For the ERC20 token? Absolutely. The Ethereum blockchain does a really good job. Someone told me today, if you'll talk about it, Joseph, about how Tron's advancing on that side of it. Not on the real estate side, but on people building platforms on Tron.
Yeah, similar to EOS, they're creating their own mainnet, which is like 6 times faster than Tron, so it won't get clogged up on their system. So
6 times faster than Ethereum, you mean?
Yeah, I think even faster than that. 6x is like conservative. I think it might be like 10 or 12, but it's a lot faster than the Ethereum platform.
Is the Tron platform actually, is it available in the C++ API?
I don't know what it's coded under, but they have a lot of computer science guys over there, so I'm pretty sure there's probably some C++ behind it.
C++ you can go by EOS, WebAssembly and C++.
What?
So if you want to write smart contract on C++,
well,
then you can go for EOS.
Oh, for EOS, he's saying for EOS it's written under C++.
Okay.
But I don't know what Tron is. Tron could be, I don't know.
Right. No, the reason why I was actually trying to install Ethereum C++ API on FreeBSD, and there wasn't. I was kind of stuck on that.
Yeah. But before you do that, you should probably read like what it's written under, because they have like a developer section where it tells
Right.
you what.
No. It is actually. I think it's just the GitHub project that was doesn't have the support right now for FreeBSD.
Okay.
So, what the heck is C++?
It's
C++
like
is
programming
programming.
Hold on, one at a time. Go ahead, Joseph.
It's a programming language. So, I mean, that's what a lot of these cryptocurrencies are built on programming languages.
Got it.
So it's like the if-then logic. So you write in C++, Java, C#, and there's a bunch of other languages. So he was just asking, like, what if you could write a smart contract on the Tron platform using C++. But
Or at least have it. I know that the Ethereum compiler has a SOL type of contract, but the problem with the SOL contract is I don't see any way you can put some sort of logic or something.
we could talk about that after. Let's
Okay.
continue on, and then
Sorry.
Yeah.
then we could talk about the details.
And I think.
No, it was interesting to me, though.
And I think also Ripple is primarily written in C++. They were actually, I think I already mentioned that there is a lot of a lot of their code and their API is actually based in C++.
Got it.
No,
I gotta-
it's not for a rebuild, so every application, if you want to write for a driver level program,
No,
it
no,
should be
I-
in C++.
No, I was.
So Ethereum also in C++,
Right.
Ripple also in C++, all the platform, they want to communicate with hardware, it should be C++.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I was just saying that they.
But
they were
user
developing-
who is going to interact, that should be high level language, like C++ or JavaScript or C#, whatever it is.
Right, no, I was saying that their technology is basically written in C++. They actually have a presentation at CPPCon about 2 years ago saying how they actually implemented their project in C++ and what the challenges they have.
Well, you guys give me a great idea, two great ideas. One, we could play a drinking game, and every time they say C++. And then I guess the second one is that we're gonna have like a half-hour session, because the rest of us might, get crazy, of just think about joining us next time to do maybe a half-hour session on coding and how that works and so forth, to bring us up to date, because that's an area that I'm extremely weak in. I'd probably never be strong in it, but at least I'd like to get a better idea. So I'd appreciate if you guys think about doing that.
I was wondering if you have time after, maybe I can kind of show you some of the stuff that's on the web that has some of the code that for Ripple and Ethereum.
Yeah, we'd probably do that, but I forgot to tell you, the pizza's from Posto 31. It's a new restaurant in LaGrange Park. You all should visit. It's absolutely phenomenal. He just opened a couple days ago. It's 10/17. We're gonna go there afterwards if anybody's interested for a couple of drinks. So he donated the pizzas tonight. I think he'll be donating the pizzas. So thank you, Posto 31. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk to you afterwards.
Your point that, is it getting to the point where people are learning more about it? Well, when there's something negative, like the market going down, they're all crying, they're all screaming, and that is the time when you want to buy.
Yeah,
I mean, when everybody's miserable and everybody is saying, I'm tired, I'm losing more, and they want out, that's the time you want to be on the other side.
and that's the craziest thing that is not the trend.
Well,
It's the
that's my point,
Yep.
what you're saying about the Goldman Sachs coming to you as an independent, but here they're a commercial trying to get you to move so they can move even more to somebody else.
Yeah. Either have faith in this, and that's what I thought. Everyone goes, oh, did you sell your crypto to this and that? You either have faith in this space or you don't have faith in the space. You either have faith in the stock market or you don't. You have faith in the real estate market or you don't. Obviously, you lose money over time, for various things, but you've got to make those decisions, and don't let the big guys scare you. That's the most important thing. Did you ever?
Another one I was actually saying is I've kind of heard that there are other type of blockchain projects that are kind of based on private blockchain.
Yeah.
That would that also go under the type of litigation, because the people who are using the private blockchain don't necessarily have the same sort of kind of currency. What they're trying to do is create new sources of income and kind of new sources of product without having to trust a middleman or a
Yep.
third
So,
party.
so private blockchain. Please grab pizza. I think we have a little less people, so we got a lot of pizza. A private blockchain is something that's not based on one of these other ones. It's not a public blockchain that everyone can access. It's permissioned. It can be a permission blockchain where only Joseph and I can be involved in this blockchain. We put stuff on it. And we interact on that level. So that's where you have not decentralized. It's sort of centralized. It's still decentralized to us, but it's not controlled by anything. There's no Bitcoin blockchain. There's no immutable ledger.
Self-regulated.
It's
right?
not. It's self-regulated, but it's okay. Huh? XRP. So XRP, Ripple, his favorite coin, basically is something that's formed manually by a computer saying, I'm going to produce this many Ripple coin. So private blockchains are good, so we can talk about those use cases. So a real estate, the recorders of deeds was talking about using a a non-public blockchain where they would record the documents, the trusted parties. You have to select trusted parties. One of the trusted parties would be a title company still. The recorder of deeds would be part of that trusted blockchain. I don't know, potentially somebody else would be part of it, but it's all still blockchain, so it can't be changed except by those trusted parties. So a little different, not what was intended, I'm assuming, by the white paper by Satoshi, but still a useful mechanism for blockchain. And remember, I bring this up every time, the blockchain is only one distributed ledger, okay? There's lots more. Hyperledger, the Linux Foundation, has come up with that process that everybody is using for various reasons. I had heard the most fabulous thing the other day, this brings me to this point, which is great, thank you for bringing this up, is why do we have open source? Why do we have this type of mechanism? Why are people allowing me to go on the blockchain to create a use case using a decentralized app? Why?
It's faster, isn't it?
Yeah, but why did that happen? So I started talking to somebody, and again, I don't know any better, I don't know anything about coding, and it was an interesting phenomenon. They said because the early days of Apple and Google and Amazon or whoever back in the day were paying developers to do this stuff. And it cost a lot of money, and there were startups at one point. So they said, well, if we do everything open source and people sort of contribute to this open source and create this free, we don't have to pay these developers. And I go, holy crap. I thought it was very, I was thinking, this was like the, utopia, everyone's, we're all sharing each other's, but it was all based on money, which was funny. And again, I can't verify any of that because I just heard it the other day.
I think it's called Apache. I think there's
a lot of them out there.
Is that one of them, Apache?
Yeah, there's a lot of open source.
And that's what brought them all together
No.
on the cheap.
No, actually, I think it was BSD or FreeBSD. That was one of the first open source projects, except for maybe the GNU project. The reason why I say that is those are that was actually some of the universities actually trying to get some sort of Unix type of system without actually going through IBM. So they created their own project and then they shared that to the rest of the world. They were eventually sued, or potentially sued by AT&T. That's why you don't hear FreeBSD or any of the BSD types of projects right now. But they've still been developing, although their license is very permissive, meaning anyone can download the source and make changes for their own use cases, or they can, and they don't have to contribute it like what we would have with the GPL license.
Got it. So that sort of legitimizes a little bit.
So I'd like to understand, is the audience here primarily here to buy Bitcoin as individuals or to start a marketplace?
Or
an
what?
exchange?
This group here?
Yeah, so
There's
'cause
really.
I have a follow-up point once I have an understanding.
Got it. So what we originally started off, there's no rhyme or reason as to why we started it. We started it because people in the community, although it's funny, there's very few people in the community that come to this thing. It's people from outside, which is great. Is because they were asking me, because I started talking about Bitcoin, social media, so forth, and everybody kept on asking. No one asked me about my family anymore. About how I go, hey, what about that Bitcoin thing? I go, all right. After like the 10th time, I said, okay, I'm going to start a meetup, and then everyone started coming. So the first point was to educate, and I think we did the first 3 or 4 just educating people. And like I said, this group, the core group here now that comes consistently, it became less about education in the basics, because I mean, these two here came to an event, and now they've been to a bunch, but now they've educated themselves. So we're trying, we've had trading platforms. We had the guy from Because came the other day, talked about mining. Joseph talked about mining at one point in time. Every area that is touched in the blockchain or Bitcoin, or cryptocurrency, we sort of filled that out. So does that answer your question?
So, yeah, I think a little bit. So this topic's on compliance, and my point is that it's the big fish, as you would call them, the Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, become more involved in this. Compliance is going to follow suit. because they are only going to do something that's compliant, and they're gonna drive the compliance. And I think that as this market grows, compliance will become more and more relevant. And I am in the investment advisory space, and compliance is a pain in the neck, but it's a necessary evil. And it's there, I think, to protect the investors. That is the design of it. Sometimes they go overboard, but at the end of the day, the retail investor is protected by the SEC. And the institutional investor and the sophisticated ultra-high net worth investors can buy it through a private placement memorandum. And all of this is going to be a good source of money, which is going to make the marketplace much larger, and is going to reinforce the legitimacy of this, and is going to really make it a much more robust currency/industry.
I agree.
Well,
You should have been here 3 weeks ago when I gave my lecture on the SEC.
I'm having an SEC exam in
But-
2 weeks.
Oh.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm sure you are.
Well, thank you, that's a good insight. And
No, I think that compliance it's inevitable, but it should
make
not
it
be
bigger.
looked at as a necessary, well, it is a necessary evil, but it should be embraced, I think. I think it shouldn't be run away from, because at the end of the day, if we're all looking to be protected against the 70% fraud, you need somebody to kind of take ownership of this. Otherwise, you're just in,
You gotta meet and deal with it.
well, the
Yeah.
question is.
So that's an interesting point, and it's funny, we only have half the video up on the website. So all these meetups are on the website, if you're gonna see past meetups. We had Heather talking about exactly what you were saying, and then we had someone else who's been in the space longer than all of us saying the exact opposite. So it was sort of, I felt bad for Heather.
But if the institutional players are coming in,
Yep.
it will be.
It's here. I
It's
agree.
it's
not
here
gonna
to
avoid
stay.
it.
Yeah.
It's here to stay
You're not
if they're
gonna avoid
coming
it.
in.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And furthermore, if it's going to be a currency that eventually does replace the dollar and some of the bigger currencies,
It's gotta be legit.
the Fed and everybody's gonna get involved. They're not gonna just let that all go away.
All right, let me go to a.
Pardon me?
All right, so anyway, we'll talk about, we'll have a different thing about use cases, but these are all the blockchain-based deals that are coming through. I think you're gonna see a lot more use cases, not to do with compliance, but something else. So here's something that I'd like to talk about, and I really want to, not necessarily me telling you, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say as to why coin is fluctuating as it is. I probably shouldn't put this up because then you're cheating on my end. But putting this in the perspective is, why do you think the coins are dropping so significantly?
So interest is getting down, people are losing interest.
People are losing.
Yeah, that's the Google is telling. So Google is telling the people are losing the interest because of that prices get down.
So the Google Analytics are saying that people are losing interest in crypto.
Yes.
Interest.
Well, the question is why is it there? Is it kind of like Google is kind? Remember, Google can manipulate the algorithms depending on how they see it. They may be actually trying to do it because they kind of think that if they can manipulate the price of cryptos, that they can do it. I think that really right now there's not enough people who are actually really understand what this is, because it's too new. And
That's a great point. So I never thought about it that way, but that is pretty interesting, because I remember now Facebook, you couldn't do crypto ads anymore. There was some differentiation. Maybe they're affecting the market. Great point, you two.
It's just like stock market again, when you get a low volume day, the prices swing back and forth, and, so with low, not so many, it hasn't gone mainstream yet, so you have the biggest swings, and, I think we're just in a downdraft right now. Plus, there's every corner of the world, first it was China that did something a couple months ago that scared Jesus out of people, and then everywhere there's somebody doing something, and it ripples through. So there just aren't enough people in it right now to smooth out all the reactions.
I think it's technical. It gets to these low points, and everybody wants to be, I want to get out. And this is where I think the larger houses are going to come in and be supportive of it. And I swear, if Goldman wants to buy something, they come in If they want to sell, telling you they're going to sell something, they really want to buy a lot lower. That's what they're telling you.
Yep.
That's what their business is.
100% in the back.
I think a lot of, no one can really tell what's causing all the price fluctuations, but I think a lot of it is, we had a huge amount of newbies come into the space who only saw money and they didn't really understand the value of the technology. They didn't really understand why it's important to have a decentralized currency that the state does not control. That's what I think.
And you said it yourself, it's backwards. It's the retail investor that's in mostly on this. And, you know, they're the institutional ones that are in there for the long haul. They're the ones that, I mean, the retail investor, they're the ones that, you know, when it goes down, I'm out. You know, they don't have the staying power for whatever reason, or the stomach for it.
Got it.
Well, to me, I don't know, it seems like with the strength of the dollar, the stronger the dollar gets, the weaker crypto gets. So it seems like when they're ramping up interest rates, and when those interest rates get higher and higher, you know, your bank's gonna start paying you more on your money. So I think there'd be like a transfer there. I mean, in my opinion.
It's denominated in dollars.
Do you
that's
think
why.
there's a correlation?
Not necessarily.
It's denominated in dollars.
Well, technically.
So if you're gonna make the change on a day, you'll see either dollars up or down.
Yeah, I just wonder if there, if the crypto customer is thinking that way. I don't know, I mean.
Well, I'm also thinking that, I'll take another example
Those are
of
not
where the
low
crypto
funds.
type of customer I think would be. If you're looking at crypto as a security, or like a kind of a store of value, and you, let's say you buy gold, and what does interest rates do with gold? Do they actually have gold prices actually go higher or lower based on interest rates? Interest rates, I don't think really affect the prices or the value of gold. It's what people.
Of course they do.
I mean, most crypto traders don't even really compare what they have in US dollars. They compare what they have
But
in
it's
Bitcoin.
denominated in dollars, so if you wanna look at a net change on the day, whether it's a euro dollar
No.
or whether it's another currency, it'll be reflected in dollars.
No, so most crypto traders will trade a lot of altcoins and compare their altcoin to the amount of Bitcoin is for the day. So they'll have like 5 different coins, and then it'll be valued at like 2 Bitcoins for the day. And that's how they base their
Okay,
crypto wealth.
But it has to be denominated in dollars, so that has to affect the dollars.
No, what he's saying is that we're so United States centrist. You know, we think that everybody's thinking about this in the world of dollars, but most of the world is just denominating things as it relates to Bitcoin. So even though we see it on our coin, whatever, on our phone that way, people are thinking it the other way. That's what my clients have been telling me.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something?
But denomination is one thing, but it's not pegged, so how dollar fluctuates will be different than the crypto will fluctuate.
I'm not saying based on how the dollar fluctuates, I'm saying how the Bitcoin fluctuates shows a net result in dollars.
Yeah, I guess that's the distinction is the perspective of who's looking at this thing. And I don't know, I mean, we gotta remember that the world is, you know, we're only a small portion of the world that is dealing with crypto. So I don't know. I don't know if Japan, they're looking at it in terms of yen, or, you know, European Union's looking at it in terms of euro, or they're doing what Joseph said is related to the crypto.
I think they're doing a little bit of both. I think like I've heard of places like Venezuela where people are trying to transfer most of their accounts into crypto. I know that India actually kind of banned the use of cryptos from the central banks, but if you have the crypto account, you'll probably still work with cryptos rather than kind of transfer everything into the rupee and kind of work from there.
Yeah.
I think the only issue with the crypto is that it doesn't have the ability to, with the cryptocurrencies, is that you don't have the ability to do local transactions as of yet. You can't do like that for your day, unless you're dealing with like buying stuff from online, like groceries, etc. You actually have no way of doing like daily transactions with the cryptocurrency, and I don't think that would come anytime soon.
Yeah. We'll see. We shall see. All right, so We got about 10 minutes left. I guess first question is does anybody else have anything that they would like to present on or would like to hear about it? And we'll go chase down a speaker. And you know, if worst case scenario, I'll figure it out and speak on it, so it's not a problem. But I'd like to get some ideas. If you have any, or if you're shy a little bit and want to talk to me after to tell me, that's okay too. And then anybody have any ideas for future presentations?
Can I say a quick poll?
Yep.
I'm just curious, how many people here own crypto? Okay, how many of you guys would spend your crypto on food? 1, 2, okay. 3? 3? Okay, I was just curious. 4? Was that 4 back there? Maybe? No? Okay. I was just curious, that's all. Yeah.
Well, I do know that there was one person who actually.
Not yet, not yet.
Depends what's the value of the dollar.
Who's to say?
Well, I do know that there was somebody who actually purchased the pizza using, via Domino's, using Bitcoin. I think they are a little bit upset that they did that, but at the time, that was kind of an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, no, that was. Did everyone heard that story?
Yeah, 10,000.
Has anybody not heard that story? This is a good group. We're gonna grow this group. Anything else? Anybody else want to talk about anything? Yeah, go ahead, please.
One topic would be blockchain use cases.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
All right. Yeah, we got a lot of those, so we'll do that for sure.
I think that this might be for people who are kind of maybe the differences between the different coins like Bitcoin, Ripple, Tron, Ethereum. I think that Dogcoin, Litecoin. What are their what are they, and kind of what
What do they do?
Yeah.
Yeah, this sounds like a good presentation. We'll have use cases in the blockchain. We'll have coin, and maybe that'll be a good discussion point for purposes of explaining this in perspective of compliance. This is what do they? I can't say it. It's an S coin or is it an altcoin? If you know what an S coin is, then that's okay. Determining what is a good coin and what is a bad coin in relation to what they do. It's a good idea.
Maybe also another one would be like if you have like a Ethereum or if you have a Tron, how to implement them, like a how-to. Like if you were starting a small business that you're trying to kind of have this type of token or use a private blockchain, how would you actually do that for your restaurant or for your business?
Yeah, which coin to use for that? Is it Dash? Is it Litecoin? Is it Bitcoin? I get it. So we got some volunteer speakers on coin on coding next time. See, don't answer your phone, you don't get called on. Yes, sir.
You should have Santos do a little lecture for us next time.
All right.
Since he's talking all the time.
Yeah. Anything else?
There's been an article in the journal about the CME have to come up with all these documents or subpoenas because of when they opened up the Bitcoin futures, and they said that there was a manipulation of the trades, and they wanted to see how it was going to affect on what was the price of the coin at the time it opened. Now, to me, it sounds like they're just throwing something up against the wall. But have you heard anything like that?
So they just sent out, the New York Attorney General's office, and I think it's the Southern District would be my guess, sent out 13 information demand letters to all the major exchanges and to the CME looking for information. And I have some of the demand letters, but not all of them. And basically, they have a questionnaire that they have given to all of the exchanges, asking them a whole variety of questions, which I assume, if they get these back and get these filled out, or get at least some of them filled out, are then going to be followed up with some sort of regulatory slap. But I don't know what kind of slap they're gonna get.
So if you want information on that, I don't know how she absorbs all this information, but she knows a lot about that. So people that are interested in that area, very, very deep into it.
Maybe next time I have something a little bit about the future of decentralized exchanges, and how they'll eventually replace most of the volume as they become more user-friendly.
Yep.
Like BISC and Komodo.
That's a good topic.
Is this, when you're talking about decentralized exchanges, that's like, kind of like a decentralized version of CME or ICE or Eurex, or am I?
In exchange with no company or human involved.
Yeah, they're coming.
Like Bitcoin.
We've talked to them. Yeah, that's good, that's good, that's a good topic as well.
What would it actually be? Would that be like, that the blockchain would actually run on the specific computer, and that the traders could actually find themselves on that type of computer?
It'd be like BISC.
Just look at this.
Core network. Yeah.
This, yeah.
Joseph introduced me to
So
this.
with that,
Cool.
when you're talking about the Tor network, is that somewhat similar to Napster, or?
They call it the dark web to make it sound scary on the news, but it's the Tor network.
Okay.
You write these things down for me? Me? Yeah. We'll remember, she reminded me it's on video, we can get it later. Anything else there's great points, we'll get some of those together. Anybody want to speak? You know, we've got all our volunteers already on the coding side, but anybody else want to speak? Oh, and this gentleman, he volunteered him. So, anybody else interested in speaking? That's all right, that's good, those are great topics. Anything else you want to talk about? All right, good. All right, well, hang around for pizza, hang around for discussion, you know, get to know each other, because again, it's a lot of the same people are coming now, which is great. Invite some friends. If you want to go over to Posto 31 for a drink afterwards, just let me know. I'm buying the first round. And that's it. Thank you, Posto 31, for the pizza. All right? And thanks to the Park District of LaGrange for allowing us to come here. All right, thanks everyone. Thank you.